All right, Lions fans, we're going to talk about the guy that is getting all of the hate, or has been for the majority of a couple of seasons. And it really started this offseason when a lot of people wanted to cast away Jared Goff for what they thought was going to be a better player in Lamar Jackson. And I was emphatically against that move, knowing what type of offense this Detroit Lions runs and how if you change the quarterback, it really changes everything and the types of players you have. And I mean, even the offensive line, everything is different. You know, you marry your quarterback to the rest of your team and vice versa. You pick players to work with the quarterback that you have in that type of a system. And what we just seen from Jared Goff was nothing short of incredible, but it's who he is. It's the type of player he's always been. And I want to address the haters in the fan base, the ones that said, oh, put Hendon Hooker in. Hendon Hooker needs to play. The guy hasn't even practiced for 2 weeks, hasn't gone through a full training camp healthy, has had limited opportunities, if any, during the weekly workouts between games. And you want to put a rookie in? You think that's the best answer, is to put a rookie in, when I've shown you guys the stats? If you follow my channel at all, and if you go through and watch the videos that I put out, rookie quarterbacks do little to nothing for 2.5 seasons. Since 2017, there has literally been 3 rookie quarterbacks that have done anything of substance. And quite honestly, it's really only been 2. And I'm only talking wins and losses and playoff appearances and Super Bowl appearances. And that's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. And honestly, Lamar Jackson doesn't fit because he's only gone to the 1 playoff game and lost his first season. And then since then, he really just hasn't done much. So you put Jared Goff into the equation, and he has the second best stats next to Patrick Mahomes when it comes to playoff berths, playoff wins, and Super Bowl appearances. So again, why on earth would you want to put a rookie in? Why would you want to cast away a multi-year vet that has run this offense to be a top 5 offense now for 2 seasons straight? And not only that, it's what he's done with what he's had. This Detroit Lions team had nobody in 2021. Nobody. All of the receivers that we brought in didn't even play in week 1 because they were hurt and on IR or done or whatever. Goff had no weapons in year 1. It was a complete teardown to the mud, like I've always said, and he had to start with nothing. We had DeAndre Swift. That was about it. So to address the haters, I hope that Jared Goff has finally proven to you that the guy can play in big time games. He is now 5-0 on primetime in 2023. And primetime usually brings the best competition. And we've seen the best competition, albeit maybe the Raiders game wasn't that great of a competition. But you look at what the Raiders just did to the Chargers. That could have been the Lions any given Monday or Sunday. So what I want to tell you is this, and this is the most important thing. This is a game that takes 22 players, really 25, but 22 players, not just 11 on offense or defense, and certainly not just one guy named Jared Goff. Jared Goff requires a decent offensive line, just like any other quarterback. Jared Goff requires a couple of wide receivers that are better than average, just like any quarterback. Jared Goff requires a running back that's better than average, just like any other quarterback. So why are the rules different for him? Why do people say, well, he's just a game manager, or he needs everything to be perfect to succeed? He doesn't. He doesn't need everything to be perfect. And I think that he's proven that by what this offense has had to deal with this season when it comes to injuries. He's a very big piece of this Lions success, but he's not the only piece. Where would Jared be without his 2 top rookies right now, in JAHMYR GIBBS and Sam Laporta, having the kind of season that they're having? And this may not happen, without the firepower that he has, right? I mean, Jared Goff has some legit firepower right now. And that is not a negative on Goff. It's just a fact of the game. But who else would the Lions go to, right, that can do what they've done? And who else would have gotten them in the position to succeed and worked with them during the offseason, the training camp, and after practice, in the meeting room, wherever Jared is leading these guys? It takes a special quarterback to develop a rookie. The rookie has to be good at what he does, but you still have to develop with your quarterback. It doesn't matter who it is. You have to develop the timing and the chemistry and everything else. Look, Jameson Williams is slowly coming along. A number 12 overall pick. Best college wide receiver coming out of the draft on paper. He's just not there yet. Sam Laporta, take things, maybe a little bit more serious. I don't know. But his proof is in the pudding, which is on the field, and what he just did on Saturday night. So again, I'll go back to the question. Who else would Jared Goff go to right now if he didn't have Sam Laporta? Brock Wright? And if he didn't have JAHMYR GIBBS? Greg Reynolds? Because that's the only other options we have. I don't think you guys realize that Jared Goff doesn't just have a stable full of, top draft picks and number one wide receivers on this team, and he hasn't in 3 seasons. He's literally had one wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he's had a collective of guys that do, or perform a certain role on this team. So I think you guys know that the answer is nobody. The Lions have barely enough depth right now and needed some guys to step up big this season and last season for what they accomplished at the tail end. The good news is next season, we get more rookies. We have a ton more money. And Brad Holmes is going to bring in some more playmakers. And it'll be another season that Jameson Williams will finally be healthy and in the system and probably ready to go. Make that huge leap forward in 2024. So calling Jared the problem, the scapegoat, a game manager, whatever you want to call him, I feel like that is just a simple-minded, non-football understanding way to categorize Jared Goff. I feel like those people have no clue what football is. They must not. Because if they did, then they would know that a guy that's leading in top 5 of almost every statistical metric that matters, or at least top 10 or better, that's pretty tough to do. And to do it for 2 seasons in a row, that's really tough to do. So, look, I'm trying to do this in a way that maybe isn't so harsh, but I don't really know how else to do this because I'm passionate. I'm supportive. I see what the real Jared Goff is, and I've said it just about every single week. I mean, I call him out when he has a bad game, just like everybody should do, but I'm not saying throw him in the trash can. I'm not saying trade him away. I'm not saying find somebody else and don't pay the guy. No, what I say is he's had a bad game. He's allowed to have a bad game or 2 a season. It happens, but that's where you expect your defense to step up. There's been 0 quarterbacks in this league that have played perfectly from game 1 to game 17. 0. They depend on their core players on offense and defense to step up. If Jared's having a bad day or the quarterback's having a bad day, their defense needs to go and get a few turnovers, get a couple extra stops, keep the points off the board. That's what football's all about. It's called complementary football. You pick up on where somebody else is lacking. It's almost like a marriage, right? You do some things great. Your wife does some things great. Together, you can do all things great. Where you're deficient, she's not. Where she's deficient, which no woman would ever be deficient, right? You have a few extra, opportunities to pick up where maybe she isn't doing as well in life. Who knows? The point that I'm trying to make is they all feed off each other. Every single one of those guys depends on each other. And that's why it's a team game. It's the ultimate team game. Here's the biggest thing to me. Jared Goff has dealt with a patchwork offensive line for more than 2 seasons, going on 3 seasons now in Detroit. Last year, I believe the stat was they started at least 8 to 10 different offensive line formations. And guess what? In 2023 through week 15, they've done it again. And some weeks we've only had 2 really good starters and a few fill-ins. Or some weeks we've had 3 and a couple of fill-ins. Some weeks we've had 4 and a fill-in. We even had a new center this year a couple of times. So how do you expect Jared Goff to work through that? Right? That trickles down to everybody. When you have a different line in there and you have now a different rhythm, maybe they're not used to the cadence. They're not used to the timing. Just moving from right guard to center, timing's different. The holes that you're trying to open up for JAHMYR and Monty are different at different areas on the field. And see, a running back gets used to that. They get used to, all right, I know when he's going to get into his spot. And that's why they have something called practice. They work it out. They get used to it. And that's why you see teams get better and better and better throughout the season. That's why you've seen JAHMYR GIBBS get better and better and better throughout the season. He used to hit his holes way too hot, way too quick. He wasn't patient. Now he's developed that patience, and he's found that running style that's working with this offense. But that also is because he's got a leader in Jared Goff, teaching the guy, helping him develop the timing. Jared Goff's doing high-level things in the NFL. I really hate the fact that McVay did what he did and said what he said about and to Jared Goff. And how everyone around the league just kind of felt like Jared was thrown in the trash. I feel like that's what set Jared up for failure in Detroit. And by failure, I mean with the fan base and the media. Nobody really dug into it. They just listened to everything on a surface level instead of really getting to the root of the issues, because it clearly wasn't Jared Goff that was the issue in LA. I believe that there was a lot of communication issues, in McVay probably getting some pressure, had to find a scapegoat. And speaking of scapegoats, we're going to go to some footage right now of Taylor Decker and what he said this past weekend about his quarterback, number 16, Jared Goff.
Your quarterback heard it pretty good this week and had a couple of games in a row where he wasn't secure with the ball. 5 touchdowns for him tonight ties a career high. What does it mean to see him have that kind of game?
Yeah, I mean, of course we see that kind of stuff. And like, for me to see people kind of using him as a scapegoat is kind of ridiculous. I mean, the guy has played some great football, and, you know, there's been times where we just need him to try and make a play, and maybe something happens that we don't want to happen. So he's been the same guy week in and week out. So, I mean, I don't think, like, him as a scapegoat was warranted whatsoever. It was ridiculous, honestly, I think. So, because it's a team game. I mean, there's so many guys out there doing things. You know, like, if I don't do my job, it makes it harder on him. And there's a trickle-down effect from every position. So, just really happy for him. I mean, he was making some big-time throws. His communication with the line was awesome. Like, his demeanor was great. And I couldn't be more happy for him.
All right, so listen, this Saturday night, the Lions just did something incredible. I mean, it was the ultimate team performance by these guys. They came out firing on all cylinders, and Goff had a career-tying game performance, 5 TDs, a stat that he also put up in week 4 against Minnesota in 2018 on their run to the Super Bowl. Goff has thrown multiple 4 TD games, many 3 TD games in his career already. So it's not that this guy can't do it. It's not that this guy can't make the throws, because he can. And I guess that's the other thing that I keep hearing. Goff can't hit Jameson Williams. Goff can't throw the deep ball. It's all BS. You don't know football. You just don't. You see something that you're watching on TV, and you think that you know everything. Do you have any idea how fast these plays happen? And you're watching it in slow-mo, thinking it's Goff's fault because you're watching it in slow-mo. I wish that some people, some haters, and, you know, these people that think that they know it all, right? And I don't claim to be one. I'd love for them to sit in the middle of that offense when the ball's hiked. They wouldn't have a clue of what's going on. Jared Goff literally has had 2.6 seconds to get the ball off, or less, the majority of the season. And I'm going to show you some stats here in just a moment. And these are all current up-to-date stats by PFF. 2.6 seconds to get through at least 2, 3, or 4 reads or more. Outlet, flat, options, you name it. That's it. Bang, bang, bang. The ball's got to get out, or he's getting sacked. So when Jameson Williams comes to the mic and tells everybody this past weekend, the week before, I'm not the first read, some light bulbs should have went off in some people's heads and said, oh, well, no wonder why you're open, later in the progression of the play, because you weren't the first read, you were the last read, and the ball was already out before Jared got to you. Or maybe he just looks open because the play has already progressed going to the other side of the field. You guys got to understand too. I mean, divide up 2.6 seconds between 4 options, at least 4 options on a play. And there's typically more than 4 options on a play. It's not long, right? I mean, you're talking half a second or less. So I'd like to see somebody else go out there and try to sling a ball half a second or less with 300-pound linemen and 270-pound, defensive ends that run 4.5s, 4.6s flying at you, with 5 300-plus-pound offensive linemen coming in, backing up at you, and your blind side that you're not looking at. It's not easy. And what Jared Goff does, he does at a high level. And he overthrew Jameson Williams this weekend. So I thought he couldn't hit him. I thought he couldn't hit, throw it deep enough. I thought, JMO could outrun Jared Goff every time. It's called timing. They just don't have it yet. They haven't had enough time to work on it. Jameson missed another 6 weeks, 4 weeks this season, 4 critical weeks during preseason because he was hurt again and then suspended. I expect next year JMO to take off. And if he doesn't, then I think we have our answer, because it's not Jared Goff. And I'm going to make that point very clear here in just a second. But before we do that, let's roll into some stats for this last weekend's game. Then I'm going to make my point as to why it's not Jared Goff. All right, so let's talk about the stats of the Broncos game. Jared Goff, man, heck of a game. He was 24 of 34, 278 yards. He had a 70.6% completion rate, which is higher than his season average. He threw 5 TDs, 3 to Laporta, 1 to St. Brown, 1 to Gibbs. 0 interceptions on the day against the defense that was plus 11 in turnover ratio, that's been winning games 5 in a row by getting turnovers, and they got 0 against Jared Goff. Everybody crucified Jared Goff for having some interceptions and some fumbles while he was under immense pressure. Then now he steps into a game against one of the best defenses to do it, and he plays lights out. Damn near throws a perfect game. He was sacked twice, 134.6 rating, 76.1 QBR, and that's a pretty darn good QBR. All right, so next up, here's what I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Goff's season stats for 2023. So far through the season, he's got 3,727 yards. He's thrown 26 TDs. Good enough for third place in the NFL, both stats. He's got a 67.13 comp rate, completion rate. That's good enough for 7th in the NFL right now. He's thrown 10 interceptions, which has him tied for 7th. And what's unique about this is being tied for 7th also includes Tua, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Dobbs, Desmond Ridder. Keep in mind that he threw 3 picks in a game. So if those picks don't happen, he's down at the bottom of the list, like best season ever. But that's not the case. He threw the picks. And I'm going to give you another reference here. Mahomes and Josh Allen have 13 or more interceptions this season. Stafford, Bryce Young, Geno Smith, Jimmy G all have 9. And Jimmy G hasn't even played since week 8 versus the Lions. And Geno hasn't played since week 13. Stafford missed 1 game, and I'm pretty sure that Bryce Young also missed at least 1 game. So they're just behind Jared Goff by 1 interception, yet they haven't played as many games as Jared Goff has either. And some haven't played at all for a while. And the next step down from that, guys that have 8 interceptions, Justin Fields, who's missed a few games, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Herbert, Lamar Jackson, all have 7. So Jared Goff is doing fine. I mean, when you look at the league, you're going to tell me that there's a big difference between 3 picks and 10? Or 7 picks and 10? 8 picks and 10? 9 picks and 10? There's not a big difference, but you have to look inside the stats. You have to look at how many games these guys played, how many snaps they've taken, how many passes they've thrown. You really need to compare apples to apples here. When you look at the game stats after the game and the season stats, that is very surface level, right? I mean, that's elementary type thinking. You have to get more granular with it to look at substance of what's really happening on the field for your quarterback. If you want to look at surface level, go ahead. I got nothing against it. But don't ever say something negative about somebody if you don't know the real stats and if you don't know what's really happening with your quarterback. All right, so next up, I'm going to go to Goff's premium stats by PFF. All these stats come ways of PFF or ESPN. So this next slide represents the premium metrics. They tell the bigger story, what I was just talking about. Do you want to get granular or do you want to look at the surface level? I custom selected these stats as I didn't want all the guys that only came in for a few plays or only played a couple of games, because that really skews the stats, skews the numbers big time. So the average time to throw, and really all these stats have a minimum of 160 dropbacks on the season, which all starters, all true starters that are in the top 16 for performance this season or better, have played, at least, 4 games worth of dropbacks, which is 160. So All passes. Goff has averaged only 2.59 seconds in the pocket before the ball is released. That ranks 30th in the NFL, which is terrible. That means that he's under incredible amounts of pressure. Here we have one of the best offensive lines in the league, but he's getting the, most pressure, the third most pressure in the league. Not good. Straight dropbacks. This means when, you're really dropping back and throwing a pass. It's a dedicated pass play. 2.52 seconds, even worse. Even worse as far as time is considered, but it ranks 27th in the NFL. Goff runs dropbacks 46.2% of the plays. So that means 46.2% of the play calls are dropback passes. That's tied for fourth most in the league. He is 181 for 243 on completions and attempts on dropbacks while under pressure, which is the fourth most in the league. Goff is chucking a 74.5% completion rate, which is 8th best. Given all of these stats that you're looking at, you're going to tell me that Jared Goff is the problem and Hendon Hooker, who's never played a snap in the NFL, needs to come in and play. And I saw it again today. I saw it on social media that someone said, oh, yeah, Goff had a great game. Who cares? I want Hendon Hooker in next week. And I saw it from more than one site and more than one person. And that's why I'm doing this video. And that's also why I'm a little lit up right now about it, because this fan base needs to correct itself. Look, I'm not going to tell you how to act. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. I'm not going to tell you, to change your mind or try to change your mind. I'm just going to point out the facts, the truth, the honest opinions, the honest facts. That's what you're going to get from me. So what we saw to Jared Goff this Saturday is Jared Goff. That's who he is. And what these stats are telling you is that there's more that meets the eye. All right, last stats are his career stats. And I don't think it's any secret that this guy is 64, 49, and 1. That he has a winning record and a darn good record. That he is 29,581 yards of passing, 2,585 completions. Good for a 64.6% completion rate lifetime right now. That's damn good. Top 10. 181 TDs to 80 interceptions means that he throws a pick less than 2% of the passes that he throws. And you guessed it, he's got a 500 win rate as a Detroit Lion. 22, 22, and 1. Inside 3 seasons, after this team completely gutted everything, more than, I don't think I told you guys this today, but I'm going to tell you now. More than 85% of the roster has been gutted since the 2020 roster that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes took over. And do you realize that the majority of the players that are now on the team from that roster are just Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, Dan Skipper, Tracy Walker, Taylor Decker? It's pretty much our offensive line and a DB. That's it. That's all that has come from that old roster. All new players inside 2.5 seasons. Well, 2 3/4 seasons now. All new players. Majority of rookies playing their first year. That's what this team's all about. And Jared Goff is the man, and here's why. I want to talk rookies for a second. I apologize. I'm a little amplified today, but I haven't been feeling good for a couple of days. Had an amazing Saturday night watching the Detroit Lions kick the crap out of the Broncos. Dan Campbell beats his old mentor. And I still got to deal with this Jared Goff stuff on a Monday morning. So let's talk Amon-Ra St. Brown. Does Amon-Ra in 2021 set the all-time rookie receiving records with 912 without Jared Goff? In 2022, in week 2, does he break the NFL record with 6 consecutive games with 8 catches and a TD? Also in that same week, does he tie the NFL record with Antonio Brown and Michael Thomas with 8 consecutive games with 8 receptions? In that same week, does he set a franchise record with, for TDs? How about in 2022 in week 15, how he became the youngest Detroit Lions receiver with 1,000 yards in a season at age 23 and 61 days, beating Kelvin Johnson's record? Or how about in week 7 of 2023, St. Brown set the most catches by a Lions receiver in 2 games and setting the new franchise record with 25 catches. Or again, in week 7, he also broke Herman Moore's record set in 1997 with 6 straight games of 50 yards or more and 5 receptions or more to start an NFL season. Oh, we're not done, because in week 8, during the Monday night Las Vegas game, he became the wide receiver with the most receiving yards, 2,738, through his first 40 games with Detroit, breaking Calvin Johnson's record of 2,694 yards in his first 40 games. Oh, wait, I forgot a couple from week 7. He set the most catches by a Lions receiver in 2 games, setting the new franchise record with 25. Oh, no, wait, I already said that. I don't know why that's in here twice. All right, so we're going to talk Amon-Ra St. Brown. And we're going to talk about how Jared Goff is the man. And that's because of what the rookies have been able to do, and these second-year players, how they've been able to grow, and how Jared Goff has been so instrumental at helping these guys do what they've been able to do. And I don't think that it happens without Jared. So we'll start right away with Amon-Ra. 2021. He sets the all-time rookie receiving yards record with 912 yards, single season, rookie season. 2022, week 2, broke the NFL record with 6 consecutive games with 8 catches and a TD in each game. Again in week 2, ties the NFL record with Antonio Brown and Michael Thomas with 8 consecutive games with 8 receptions per game. Well, and then again in week 2, he also set the franchise record for TDs. Week 15, we're not done. 2022, he became the youngest Lions receiver with 1,000 yards in a single season at age 23 years and 61 days, beating Calvin Johnson's record. And then in week 7 of 2023, St. Brown set the most catches by a Lions receiver in 2 games and setting the new franchise record with 25 catches in 2 games. And again in week 7, he also broke Herman Moore's record set in 1997 with 6 straight games of 50 yards or more and 5 receptions or more to start an NFL season. Which then brings us to week 8, the Monday night game versus Las Vegas. He became the wide receiver with the most receiving yards, 2,738, through his first 40 games with Detroit, breaking Calvin Johnson's record of 2,694 yards through his first 40 games. You go ahead and tell me that Amon-Ra St. Brown could have done that with any other quarterback. And then I want you to look at the cast of wide receivers that were around Amon-Ra St. Brown, because there really isn't any true number 1s around Amon-Ra St. Brown. We barely have a number 2. You going to tell me Khalif Raymond is a number 1 or a number 2? Josh Reynolds a number 2 or a number 1? Probably a number 2. How about DJ Shark? Is he a number 1? Nah. Good number 2. Probably a number 3 on most teams, but a solid number 2. Who else? What was it? Kadarius Hodge? I mean, was he a number 1 or a number 2? Rashard Perriman? How about him? Was he a number 1 or a number 2? I think you see where I'm going with all this. What St. Brown did with Jared Goff slinging the rock happens because he's got a competent quarterback that knows how to thread the needle and to get his wide receiver open. And his wide receiver puts in the work together with him, and they go ball out together. But now we're going to move on to Sam Laporta, a rookie in 2023, who just set the rookie franchise record with 9 TDs against the Broncos. He became just the first tight end in league history to have at least 70 receptions, 700 yards, and 8 touchdowns in their rookie season. And in week 16, he should set all the records held by a tight end for the Detroit Lions franchise. I think he needs about 20 more yards and a couple catches, and I think he's all set. But we're not going to stop there with Sam Laporta. I mean, he's about to set the all-rookie tight end records. He needs quite a bit to do it, but it can be done. I don't know if it'll happen. But again, the point I'm trying to make is you bring these rookies in. Amon-Ra was a 4th-round pick. He was never supposed to be somebody in his first season. But Jared Goff found a way. Together, they found a way together. And now in 2023, Sam Laporta becomes the best rookie tight end in the NFL. And he's teetering at top 2, top 3 in the entire league and could finish as the best. That's pretty incredible. And that doesn't happen with some slapstick quarterback slinging the rock. JAHMYR GIBBS is kind of a quick one because he has 296 pass yards on the season, which is pretty darn good for a running back, especially a rookie. But he's about to break 1,000 yards rushing. He needs 208 yards. He's already broke 1,000 yards all purpose. But again, you've got another rookie that's performing at a high level. And a lot of that comes from your quarterback and how he puts him in a position to win. All right, the next things I want to get to is a couple of quotes, and I'm going to wrap this up. Let's talk Cam Newton. So Cam Newton's quote went a little something like this last week. Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jared Goff, and really Dak Prescott, these are game managers. They're not difference makers. They're asked not to lose the game. I don't care what you do. You don't have to score every time. You just don't have to throw a pick every time either. If we are really going to call a spade, a game manager is different than a game changer. Let me ask you a question, Cam Newton. How many Super Bowls did you win? But I'll tell you what. You're calling out a guy in Jared Goff that's doing nothing but balling out. You're going to tell me that 5 TDs in a football game is not a game changer? Let me guess. It was all the receivers doing, right? It had nothing to do with the quarterback. Making the proper reads, getting the throw out in time, throwing his receiver open, hitting him in stride, calling the right checks and the right plays at the line. Nah, it's just a game manager, right? Get real. CJ Gardner responded like this. If Cam's talking about Jared Goff, then what are you? Gardner Johnson tweeted this shortly after Cam Newton said what he said. He said, last time I checked, you couldn't manage a game. Stop coming for my QB. And I think everybody out there needs to take that quote to heart from CJ Gardner. As a fan base, we need to stop attacking our own. It's okay if you're in the media space, you know, I guess any space, if you're being critical, but you're also observing what's relevant. Like, I'll be critical over someone's game performance. I mean, that's just part of what I do. Being an analyst in trying to, you know, analyze and produce content for people to absorb is giving you all of the details, right? And the details are what matter. And I can tell you that Jared Goff is going to win way more games than he's going to lose as long as the rest of the players around him take care of their details, just like Taylor Decker said. As long as we've got our guys healthy, this team is going to win a bunch of games. Don't be so quick to throw something away. And I know it's an old adage, you know, that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, or you just don't know what you have until it's gone.
All I can tell you is he's playing at a high level, and he needs to be with us. So I know that.
Be mindful of that, because the Detroit Lions haven't had very much success in many seasons. And we are now just finally having some incredible success. We're at 10 wins for the first time in a long time. We've gotten better every season for the first time in a long time. Stop poo-pooing on Jared Goff. I'm glad that he is cold as ice, man. He's got ice in his veins because he went out there on Saturday night and showed everybody he does not care what you say. Good, bad, or otherwise, he don't care. He ain't got time for it. He's the leader of this team, and he's going to stay the leader of this team until he isn't. And only he can make that decision by how he plays at a consistent level, week in and week out, for the long term. A couple of games does not define a player. Because when you go back and you look at the history of Jared Goff, even as a Detroit Lion, all you see is somebody that goes in and does their job and gets better. When the team around him gets better, he gets better too. It would be different if the team got better and he regressed. We clearly haven't seen him regress. So that's what I wanted to share. Again, I apologize. I'm a little lit up today. It's just, I'm over it, man. I'm trying to enjoy the season. And I love doing this. I love being in this space and talking Detroit Lions and sharing my thoughts and opinions and all the facts and stats and everything else with you guys and all the analysis that I break down. But let's be better fans. Let's be better fans. I guess that's where I'm going to leave it. I appreciate y'all. Go in pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.